Hello, everyone. Welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo, the go-to podcast for those seeking success that resonates on every level. Our guide on this journey to success is J.A. Dava, co-founder of Latreia Coaching and Consulting. Each episode, we challenge you to step outside your comfort zone in redefining holistic success. Because in order to truly excel, one must rise in all aspects of life: spiritual, physical, relational, and philanthropical. So buckle up. Let's explore how your vocation and well-being can harmonize perfectly. And give a warm welcome to the host of Challenging Your Status Quo, J.A. Dava.
All right, everybody, this is J.A. Dava. Welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo. Oh, my goodness. I'm absolutely 100% jacked about what's about to come on and who is about to come on, right? I mean, this show, I love this show. I love doing this show. We have another podcast called Live It Out. We have another podcast called The Coach's Corner. But what I love about this, and I love you joining us, is because here, this podcast called Challenging Your Status Quo, and this one I'm calling Bigger Than I. Okay, that's the title of today's podcast, is Bigger Than I. And I'm not gonna leave it there necessarily, but I will tell you that yes, you're joining us because of the vocational help that I believe you need to be hearing anyways. So in your business, we're going to talk about some tips on your vocational side of it. But today, our special guest, Patrick Fulgham, is going to be talking to us a little bit about the balance between your vocational well-being, your spiritual well-being. So you can almost make it up in your own head here. Bigger than I. Okay, that actually came out of Patrick when I was interviewing him in a preparation mode. And but it sums up what today's episode is. And so I'm going to be bringing Patrick in. But one of the things I want you to know about our special guest today is that I truly believe we'll end up also kind of adding a bonus well-being in there. Because as you well know, guys, right, when you join us, we have vocational well-being, but then we couple that with either spiritual well-being, balancing that, relational well-being, physical well-being, and then the fourth one being the philanthropical well-being. In other words, what are you doing with the blessings that you've been given in this business? So with that said, I'm going to introduce you to Patrick Fulgham. And Patrick, by the way, and I met just recently, and what a blessing that was. Our meeting happened in, of all places, Las Vegas, right? Where Mastermind was. And there, a lot of learning going on, a lot of vocational help was going on in that place. But I remember his booth being just behind ours, and it had to do with this thing called CRM. So without even stepping into that ground right now, I want to introduce you guys to Patrick Fulgham. He works for a company called Adium. What you're about to find out, guys, if you've ever had an excuse, if ever you make excuses about how busy you are, wait till you hear a little bit about Patrick's story. So with that said, I want to introduce Patrick on. Patrick, you are live with us here at Challenging Your Status Quo. I want to just first and foremost welcome you and thank you for being a special guest here on Challenging Your Status Quo. How you doing, Patrick?
Absolutely, Jay. Such a pleasure. Thank you all. Thank you so much for having me. Sincerely appreciated. And this conversation is going to be absolutely incredible, as the roots that we planted with our initial interaction in Las Vegas at Mastermind was priceless, to say that. I mean, I think that's the best word to sum that up as well. So thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. The honor is mine for sure. I've been waiting to have this. I mean, that was back in June, like 5th, 6th, or something like that. So it's been quite some time, and it's due time now. It's always the right timing, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to these podcasts. So Patrick, just as a matter of really, and I've introduced you on, you work with a company called Adium, but can you just take a couple of minutes here and just tell us more about who you are, if you would?
Sure. Yeah. So it's from a vocational perspective, or that corporate perspective, that the company I currently work for is ADM, customer relationship management, service that provides excellent, over the top, and streamlined services for loan officers in that real estate space as well. There to essentially streamline your business. And then outside of that, born in Florida, raised in Virginia Beach, come from a military family. My father was drafted, ended up investing 30 years into the Navy, and then working an additional 20. And then my mother's also retired. Have an older brother, younger sister. Brother speaks 8+ languages. That first language being Italian, since my parents did live in Italy for 7+ years. And then grew up in Virginia Beach, beautiful Virginia Beach, and then currently live in America's finest city on the West Coast, San Diego, California.
Awesome. You're a humble guy. And I want people to understand why I'm saying that, because I'm about to ask you this question. Not having you on the show until now, by the way, had nothing to do with the fact that you and I couldn't put our calendars together. You kind of travel a bit, right?
I do.
Okay.
I absolutely do.
And so, part of this is that vocational help, right? Do we all have enough time to do the things that we're doing? So I want to talk about what had you traveling? Was it through ADM that you were traveling, or tell us a little bit about why I'm chasing you all over, and you're like in the Philippines, you're like in, I don't know where you are, but you're all over all over the world. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So speaking of world travel, it's something that my parents, actually, my brother specifically, but my parents really instilled in us, and implored us the opportunity to immerse ourselves in culture, and really go and grow through what you go through, and really learn from any and everyone you encounter. And so that's exactly what I did, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Yes, when we met each other, it was through ADM. However, the vast majority of my travels are through the bodybuilding realm. So I am currently the head judge of the largest promoter of bodybuilding in the world, known as Muscle Contest. We have over 200+ shows worldwide in 9 countries, 5 continents, and we're still going strong. So that really allows me to travel extensively, not just here in the States, but also globally. I'm headed to your hometown, actually, the Philippines next month, where I'm extremely excited to, engage and immerse myself in that culture, and learn and eat good food, and
Yeah.
and all the above. So, but I've been fortunate and extremely blessed, to say the least, to be able to travel and be able to speak as many languages as I do conversationally. And it's just been a blessing, to say the least, divine intervention.
Absolutely. And you competed. Did you compete as well in the
Correct.
bodybuilding world? And
Yeah, so I started competing in 2013 in a category known as men's physique. So we were board shorts. So April 13th, 2013, to be exact, was my very first show, which, long story short, came from an individual who I happened to be working with on the corporate side in higher education. And he, you know, informed me about the bodybuilding realm, implored me to contact someone who he knew, who ended up being my first coach, who then ended up giving me 6 weeks to prep for my very first competition, which essentially led me into competing at the 2015 and 2016 Mr. Olympia. And then so it all, the trajectory was already planned out, and we can
right.
get more involved into why I believe that. But it's just, again, been such a blessing going from competing, or growing up as an athlete, growing up with a lisp, a stutter, being bullied into the gym, having my own personal training business, to a multitude of other businesses, to then, competing on the largest stage in the world.
Right.
And then now being, the head judge of the largest corporation, or the largest, fitness and health, within the industry, within the bodybuilding industry specifically in the world, and being able to also utilize the skills that I've been able to apply. And it's been incredible.
Well, I know that's a story on its own, by the way. You've shared this story about the Mr. Olympia, and especially all the things that you went through. It's funny when you're about to make a witness of yourself in something, what forces keeps you from trying to make it happen, and yet it happens, right? So, but we can talk about that, and we will. And I certainly hope this is not the only time I get you on the show. I'd love to be able to talk about other things with you. But I do thank you so much for just letting us into your world a little bit, and getting to know who you are. And yes, by the way, eat the greatest foods there in the Philippines, because it is such good food. That's, yeah, man, enjoy.
I'll make sure to send pictures and yeah,
Oh, yeah, you do that,
you'll
and I'll
live
send.
vicariously through me.
Yes, I will do that. So, but I want to talk about something that our audience is going to be listening to this. One of the reasons why I approached you on the table to begin with, when you were at your booth with Adium, is because as coaches and a business coach in the mortgage and real estate industry, one of the things that we talk about is the modern fundamentals, right? And I love using that because I'm also a golfer, and there's a book by Ben Hogan called The Modern Fundamentals of Golf. And in other words, it talks about the fundamentals being very, very important in golf. It has to be the grip, the swing, the approach to the ball. All of those kind of things have to be right on. Those are the fundamentals. And people have talked about how golf has changed. I believe what they're saying is the techniques, the fundamentals has stayed exactly the same. The equipment,
Right.
the technology has changed, but everything is still the same as far as fundamentals. And in the mortgage industry, um, Patrick, we talk about the fundamentals all the time. There are certain things that are non-negotiable in the mortgage industry, and that is taking probably the largest opportunity that we all have in building our mortgage business, and that is in our databases, right? And when I started in way back when, we had Rolodexes, right? We had different things like that. That's how old I am, by the way. And we had Rolodexes and things like that. So we didn't really have the comforts of what is now called a CRM. But one of the things that we teach is how important it is that we are on top of our database and our database mining and database communication and database journeys through this thing called a CRM. And then lo and behold, we are not, there's only one system we use, which is now Adium, by the way. So thank you for that. We've been incredibly happy, by the way, with Adium. But we were using another system, but we weren't just teaching that one system. CRMs overall need to be utilized. And so people were starting to ask us, can you coach us on our CRM? Well, if they were not using the same system we were using, we weren't the experts in teaching others about other people's systems. So we went to you guys, and I really was asking you, would you ever come on board, and can we send some people your way to train them on how to utilize CRMs, right? And that's how we met. That was the approach. We were not looking for a CRM, and we today are clients of yours, and we're blessed by that. So,
Indeed.
but tell me something right off the bat for our audience. First of all, you made a move to Adium. Of all, your experiences and everything else, Adium is fairly new in the circuit. I mean,
Sure.
you've got other companies that people know of and are well embedded in there. But first of all, tell us about Adium and that company first. And then I want to talk to you about some of the principles of database mining.
Yeah, so Adium is, I think really, something that an individual who I've been listening to for quite some time says, his name is Simon Sinek.
Hmm.
He always talks about you don't know business if you don't know people, and I think that's one of the foundations in which Adium really embodies are the relationships. It's in the name as well, CRM, customer relationship management, and I think not just from the foundation that we have in which we're trying to convey a message clearly and concisely and essentially trying to give you the gift of time that the CRM should do, but specifically us, it's the people internally we're all rowing in the same direction.
Yes.
And we all come from very different backgrounds, but we work so cohesively that this is going to be very hard to beat. And whether we're new or newer in the space or not, we all come from, a lot of us, other companies who, from other CRM companies, or other software technology backgrounds. And we have really made it work. And we brought our heads together and we said, okay, we grow through what we go through. What are the experiences we had in the past, and how do we apply them to where we are now to make this thing better? How can we make this the most advantageous CRM for your business? Because we're here for you. It's all about the customer. And I think once people can truly see that's one of the most rooted foundational values that we can add from a CRM perspective and just in life, then there's no turning back. And we have grown, and we're going to continue to evolve substantially, over the course of, really, I mean, this, even by the end of this year, from reporting to 24/7, support, to just essentially giving you exactly what you need to benefit your business and to make more money, generate more revenue, and to give you the gift of time.
Yeah. Well, so the gift of time, I love that, by the way, because one of the things that we teach as coaches, I can teach that you got to make a certain amount of phone calls every single day. There's not one single loan officer or any salesperson, for that matter, that can ever afford to not have a prospecting call sometime during a day, right?
Absolutely.
So when they're working, and we in our coaching system, we almost require, for their own good, certainly not ours, and they can certainly increase these numbers, but I absolutely believe that there's not a single loan officer that could not afford to make 10 phone calls a day, right? Every day that they're working. So if you're only working 5 days a week, it's 50. And
Right.
you know what? People will look at that and it seems almost overwhelming, but yet I have people all the time that will tell me, Jay, I'm communicating with people probably 100 a day. And I have to stop and go, what you're making 100 phone calls a day? That's not necessarily true. I have a great CRM that does that.
That's right.
So can you elaborate on that? Because people take that acronym, I mean, just that CRM. Oh, we all have it, but it's amazing to me, Patrick, how many people don't know what they even have. So
Right. So it's one thing, right? And this essentially goes to automations, playbooks, things that, if you don't have, obviously, the BI, or the individuals who know what we want and what we need, then we can't talk to the AI in order to, achieve the goal. So, I mean, AI is obviously out there, ChatGPT, et cetera. But if we don't have a clue of what the desired outcome should be, then we're just going to be manually doing the same thing that we were doing years ago. So these are automations and playbook. These are things that are set up to where, these tasks aren't as tedious anymore. Because 10 phone calls a day, I worked at a place where we had to make 200 phone calls a day, or 200 minutes of accumulated talk time, and that was all manual dialing. And now with something like our, services that we provide, I mean, it's a click of a button. It's
yeah,
literally, and then once that voicemail is left, or once, that phone call is made, depending on the outcome of that call, the next call dials. I mean, it has simplified and streamlined individuals' businesses like never before. You'd
yeah,
be almost a fool to not utilize a service, specifically our service.
yeah. It's working way too hard and not smart enough, right? By not
Correct.
utilizing, a CRM, because, and Patrick, what we teach on our end of it, right? We call it a three-legged stool type of a approach to sales. So in other words, our prospecting mode, I'm not one of those guys that I can honestly tell you, I don't love cold calling. I don't love it, right?
Sure.
I do it, but I don't love it. And the one
Mhm.
way that I've been able to actually make it so that I don't have to even think about whether or not this is a cold call or not is by establishing a 3 approach system. That's what makes it the 3-legged stool. It stands, secured when it has at least 3 legs, right? And the first leg that we do and we teach people is that, listen, before you ever have to make that phone call in your database, whether you have 250 or 20,000, doesn't really matter, is that you just take 10 a day, let's say, and you start them in what we call the writing campaign. Writing campaigns to us are emails, texts, chats, whatever it may be, being sent out, signaling the 10 that you're going to call right after that, right? Or next week, right? So if you sent it on Monday, you got 10 phone calls to make on that following Monday. And then based on that conversation, if you get them at all, will then lead to, there's that callback campaign. So writing campaign, callback campaign, followed by the meetings campaign. Meetings are when you're actually meeting with the client. You're calling to get the meeting to talk to them about your services. And those 3 things is a beautiful dance with a CRM,
That's
right?
That's right.
And so you called it a playbook. We called it a journey. Tell me about that. What does a journey mean in the whole CRM world? Believe it or not, probably 80% of the loan officers we talk to have absolutely no clue what a journey is in a CRM world.
Well, I think if we simplify it, it's kind of like in life, what are your desired outcomes, right? And then let's potentially start there, with big picture goal. And then we break that down and kind of work in reverse, right? So we say, okay, if my goal is to, let's just utilize phone calls, make 10 calls a day, to specific individuals, right? Then we start with, okay, we have a dialer that can dial, or we have, or you're going to be doing this manually. But I think essentially to kind of sum that up is, let's look at the big picture, and let's really start with, what are my desired outcomes? Where do I want to be? And then work in almost the reverse psychology way, or the reverse, and say, okay, if I know where I want to go, then I know where I can start. And then along that quote unquote journey, I can then pivot, evolve, call an audible, and along that journey, you learn. And then you're just like, okay, I learned that this isn't working. Let's pivot. I learned this is working really, really well. Let's pivot. And then we accumulate. It's kind of like wisdom. Applied knowledge equates to wisdom, in my opinion. It's not age per se. It's literally the more experiences you have accumulated and the more you can apply. The same concept applies to the journey. So I think to kind of simplify and streamline that process of what journey really, I guess, is defined as, that's my take on it.
Love that. And and being able to actually have that CRM, if all I was doing was calling, then it could be a Rolodex, right?
Sure.
And but otherwise, like the writing campaign, and this is what we're currently using your system for, and you guys have helped us write it and actually helped us with the journey that you've created with us, alongside us, is the fact that I just pick 10 names every single day, and we put it into the system. The system grabs it. We've got some emails already created for that, and then it goes out. And then so I don't even think about it, because then I already know that the journey itself, I don't have to think about it. And I know that 7 days from now, that on Monday, they'll pop up as my task for the 10 phone calls I need to make in following up on the email that I just sent out. And then based on if I get a hold of them, if I don't get a hold of them, I can click a button, and all of a sudden I'll know that they either get on my hot list because I'm in the meeting stages with them, or I didn't get a hold of them, so they get letter number 2. And then following it up again, the following month. Has that been a working model? And is that one of the key benefits of what a CRM does? And are you seeing that?
Absolutely. 100%. And kind of in retrospect, or to kind of piggyback on what we were conversing about initially, is literally gifting you your time back. So you physically do not have to do that anymore, and you can focus on other things, and that could be things in your personal life, or more, involved in your own business, or whatever the case may be. Is just again, it's gifting you time, and it's the most valuable asset one could ever attain, or not necessarily attain, but one has. And then you can apply and do whatever you actually desire to do outside of that. So it's just beneficial across the board. I don't see why, essentially anyone would not strongly advise and or want to use or utilize a CRM.
Yes, without a doubt. Because by the way, those 10 phone calls on an average for me is about 2.5 minutes. Think about that for a
Mhm.
second. So my marketing day, every day, 10 of them, I'll probably end up getting a hold of maybe 2 or 3 of them because I
Correct. Yep.
pre-signaled them, and then get a hold of them. And so that would consume most of the time. But oftentimes I'll get done within 20 minutes of starting that. And now I still have my day to be able to move forward. But I've established some meetings straight out of there, about 2 or 3 meetings coming out of that. So
Yeah.
you
Okay.
multiply that 5 days a week, that's 15 meetings the following week. And it's just a tremendous way to run your business accordingly. You're not hoping that business is just
Correct.
falling on your lap. You're actually going after it. And that's such a rich resource, right?
And these are
So,
actionable items, right? It's this, you're
yeah,
right, exactly. And that's, I think, kind of in the general sense, we get lost in that hope. Well, I'm just going to dial away aimlessly without, any strategic, pathway along that journey. And okay, is the action item to just dial, is just a call, or is there an outcome? Because there's always an outcome. There's always going to be an outcome no matter what. But what is that desired outcome, and how do we actually get there? And what
yes.
specific SMART goals, what specific measurable, attainable, you know, uh, time measurable, steps are we taking for that desired outcome? That's the
Yes.
biggest difference.
Yes, and so I'm going to start to pivot a little bit, right? Because part of this whole thing, first of all, for those of you that are listening to us, I know that we all have CRMs. Whether you're utilizing it, I know that 80% of you, at least that's what we're finding,
Good for
are
you.
you might have it, but the reality is you don't know what it can do for you,
That's right.
and your business can exponentially grow because of it. We absolutely believe that every single closing you have should turn into at least 2 more closings for that year. So if you think about it, if you close 40 this year, you should have closed 120 by purely utilizing a CRM, by being
Yep.
able to follow up even after you've closed them, following up on people you've closed in the past, your family, your friends, and everybody else, right? And so just a CRM alone and combining it with the journey that these guys have done masterfully, by the way, um, you will benefit tremendously for it. So there's the
Good.
balance, guys, on the vocational side of today. But Patrick, we believe in holistic success at Latre. And challenging your status quo, if you'll notice, it doesn't say challenging the status quo. It says challenging your status quo because every one of our listeners really needs to be challenged outside of just their vocational success. There are other
Absolutely.
aspects of this thing. And when you and I met, we bonded pretty quickly, which was really awesome.
Yes.
And so I thought, God has a tremendous way of kind of righting the ship, so to speak, for everyone's benefit. And that benefit was, I thought, man, I'm going to put this guy on the show because he's competed at Mr. Olympia. He's very involved in the health industry. It's got to be the physical industry, the physical well-being, which is so critical in people's lives. But when people are working on our vocational side, our number one pillar always has been spirituality, right?
Sure.
Spiritual well-being. So when I was talking to you way back when, and I said, wow, okay, so you a believer. And I remember you saying, oh yeah, man, that is much bigger than me. And that's why
That's right.
I'm calling the show Bigger Than I.
That's
Patrick,
right.
what's your journey? How important has spiritual well-being fallen into your vocational well-being and all the things that you're doing vocationally?
Is probably, if not the most important. Without him, there would be no I. hence the bigger than I. I really truly believe once we find something, it's not even, no one's lost. So when people say, I found him, or, he was always there.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of perspective, right? And a matter of,
Hmm.
kind of really letting go. We live in a society of control and instant gratification and me, and defining success as whatever that may be. My foundation is deeply rooted. Those seeds have been planted to sprout a multitude of blessings, and I'm not stopping. And I really truly believe that, because of him, I or he has allowed the successes, the challenges, the adversity, which essentially leads to more success, my definition of success, which is my health first and foremost, the time, my family, my connections and network, like the two of us, all of the things that aren't really things, our senses, waking up this morning, opening two gifts, our eyes, having breath in our lungs. My mom used to always say there's so many people who woke up today but couldn't get up. There's so many people who woke up and got up but couldn't go anywhere. And so I think once we really start to dig a bit deeper into, our foundation and understand that there's always a why behind the what. And even this new business that I started called Body Blueprint Consulting,
Yeah.
it's about the purpose driven life and really discovering your why, which isn't even necessarily, we all have more than one why as to why we are here, but for me, it's being an evangelist, and it's spreading the word and being a vessel and literally shining his light through me and keeping a smile on my face, because one smile creates another, and
Yeah.
essentially, going out into this world and being my true authentic self without the care of being judged, because people are going to judge you no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's literally my foundation.
Yeah. I mean, so because one of the things that I definitely gravitated to, right? Sometimes you'll walk by, I mean, because we go to a lot of different type of like masterminds and where you're in
That's right.
booths, things like that. And there's just times where you just kind of walk by because there's not it's not attractive enough, right? But one of
Sure.
the things that attracted me to you was the whole idea of confidence, right? And you seem confident. You seem confident about your products. You seem confident about who you were repping. But deeply, honestly, that smile that you just said, right? There's a confidence when someone smiles. You can tell when they're nervously smiling or they're hidden behind that. But there was just something about you that was confident. And in the world of sales and in the world of everything that we all do, honestly, from the athletic side of you to the ADM side of you to repping the products and all that kind of stuff, confidence is so important. And
Absolutely.
money can't buy it. So,
Yes.
am I safe to say that your confidence is driven by your spirituality?
Absolutely. So it's on the Olympia stage. Actually, at every show I've ever competed in, I would always get a call or a text from my mother. And she used to always say, remember the three C's. And this is kind of our acronym that we have between each other. And those three C's are Christ, confidence, crown. So my belief in him that I can do all things, my confidence that he gives me that no matter what, he'll never place me in positions or situations that I can't handle or we can't handle together. And the crown is the victory. At the end of the day, no matter what happens, it was supposed to happen the way he wanted it to happen in his timing. The three C's again: Christ, confidence, crown, deeply rooted. And I take that everywhere I go now. So no
Yeah.
matter what happens throughout my days, life ebbs and flows, etc., you keep it moving, one foot in front of the other. You have the confidence in knowing that no matter what, tomorrow comes with or without you, one. And two, no matter what happens, as long as I took the actions and I was proactive and or reactive sometimes, but for every excuse me, for every action there's a reaction. But with the Christ confidence and the victory, the crown, no matter what I go through in life, we'll be just fine.
Has that always been a part of your life?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think the strong,
Uh,
yeah, I'll share with this because
yeah.
I think it really changed. On a personal note, my mother was diagnosed with a condition called sarcoidosis, and she had to get a lung transplant. She ended up getting a lung transplant, surviving through it. It's been over 13 years now, our lucky number actually, and or blessed number. And it was then when she was in ICU that I think my foundation became that much more deeply rooted in my belief that God gives second chances, and so should we.
Mm.
And we're all sinners. There isn't a single perfect person walking this earth. We're all perfectly imperfect, and that's okay. And it takes all types of people to make the world go round. So growing up, when I was bullied, when I had a lisp, when I had a stuttering problem, when I was the smallest one and not getting picked up on teams, yes, the confidence was still there because of my mother, my father, my brother, my
Mhm.
surroundings, my environment, this innate ability to let myself know that, you know what, I'm going to prove to myself that I'm bigger than I, that there's something out there. I was born to be something bigger than myself. And essentially, which led to, you know what, I'm going to start praying, meditating, going and watching the sunsets, getting out in nature, things that aren't really things that
Yeah.
essentially can do so much for us if we just take a deep breath and let it go.
That's not an easy discipline, man. You know?
It's not easy.
Yeah. What
It's
grounds you on that? That's not an easy discipline. It's an important discipline. Even just breathing throughout the
correct.
day, right? But how do you discipline yourself on that?
I always go back to the word wisdom. It's the number one thing I pray for. And I got this from my mother, actually, of all people. And she's just like, without it, you're lost. Constantly pray for wisdom to make wise decisions financially, make wise decisions in your relationships, make wise decisions in life.
Yeah.
Again, you don't know what you don't know until you know better. And when you know better, do better. And that is wisdom. Is literally applied knowledge through experience. So it doesn't necessarily come with age. I used to hear it all the time. Like, this person is 80 years old, they must be as wise as. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or this person is only 21. How in the world could this individual be so wise? Well, this individual probably had 40 years worth of experience because he or she grew up a certain way, was a product of environment, etc. So I think, that foundation really stems from wisdom, and that discipline does come from. I also have a strong desire to grow and to learn and to, go out into this world and really empower and instill positivity. And I think that also is just something that you know it's just innate. And uh, I, I don't know. I've seen so much poverty, so many people struggling and challenged through either my travels and or through just individuals who I was surrounded by, eating Oreos for dinner,
Yeah.
when we had fresh hot meals, or having no food on the table when, I was fortunate enough to, have a breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks in between. And I always had this heart to give, and my cup has always been full. There's nothing I could truly say about my life to the point where, I was so heavily challenged with turmoil and so much turbulence to the point where it would be such a disservice to this world to not give.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, now you're walking into the philanthropical side of all of us, right? I mean, it all interrelates one way or the other because have you always had such great faith? And can I ask you, or, I
Sure.
remember someone told me once that spirituality is really one's ability to deal with pain. And I remember them saying that. And what was interesting about that particular statement is that um, they they had gone through so much pain in their lives that the only time that they could ever really get themselves together is when they quieted themselves down and they couldn't help but meditate, which led to prayer and going into prayer and going, who am I talking to? And then finding that person that, finding in Christ that way. And so has it always been that easy for you, Faith?
I wish I could say yes,
Yeah.
but no. I've had a lot of influence in my life in both directions, positive and not so positive, very negative, actually. A former, I guess, a friend of mine now, it was the guy I grew up with. He used to always walk around, and just constantly in my ear, why are you smiling all the time? Life ain't that good. No one's that happy all the time. And I wanted to just flip the script and say, but why not? Why
Right.
not? It was
Yeah.
like all the stuff we have going on in the world, from, the political turmoil to, you're not even rich yet and you don't have this, and all it revolved around a lot of things that we didn't have. And I
Yeah.
said, where I am rich though. Where I do have my foundation, and I'm going to stay as strong as possible through this adversity is in my heart and in my head, because this here it can steer you in one of two directions. And then this here can either get you in a lot of trouble, or it can, be the most blessed thing you can actually speak. The
Yeah.
tongue, like they say, is is the sharpest tool. You can cut deeply or you can heal wounds,
Yeah.
but in terms of it being easy, it was never really easy. It's just easier. It's kind of like the saying, it's not that it got easier, you just got better. But I got better because of the amounts and masses of experience that I had. Oh, I've seen this story play out before. I've read this book before. It may be different, but at least I know that, hey, no matter what happens, a year from now, looking back, this may not even be relevant.
Right.
No matter what happens, this turmoil, etc., this is only going to allow me to grow. And again,
Yeah.
like I said before, we grow through what we go through.
Yeah. That's when it comes to spirituality, and I'm calling it that because there's people in our audience that probably doesn't even begin to grasp that, because what's really interesting is that people come to Latreia because of vocational help, but it
Sure.
never fails that we end up covering one of the other well-beings. And one
That's
of the
right.
other well-beings that tends to be the one that takes the longest to get to, but makes a big difference in everything that they do, is the spiritual side of their well-beings.
Mhm.
It's getting
That's right.
grounded. And I appreciate that there are, I know I coach these surfers who their God is their ocean, right? I mean, they
Sure.
can't wait to get out there. They can't wait to get out onto the water. And that just, they're like in their Zen mode, right? They're in their
Of course.
quiet time and stuff like that. But what's interesting, something that they said was that, and I actually ended up performing a wedding around this message, is that
Mm.
they take they take their surfboards, right, and they start to paddle out, right? That's the first thing they do. And then once they're out there, they could sit for hours waiting for that perfect swell that turns into
Oh,
that perfect wave. And so they'll sit there, and while they're sitting there, that's when they get just great gratitude because of just the vastness of the ocean, the beauty of the ocean, and everything
yes.
else. And they get one with themselves, and then all of a sudden they wait for that perfect swell. But what's interesting about the perfect swell is that it doesn't become a perfect ride until it breaks. And once it breaks, then they ride it into a perfect, and it's a witness to them, but it's an even bigger witness to those that are on the shore looking at this perfect ride, because something broke to make that happen.
Correct.
um, and so I wanted to, that picture. And as you're talking about that, there's an awful lot of people that think that because they're bringing home the bacon, the vocational well-being, without the spiritual well-being, is there really a place for that in people's lives, and how important would it be?
Absolutely. And one thing I'll challenge any and everyone watching really around the world always, I don't implore anyone to do this per se,
Yeah.
but the pastor at the Rock Church here in San Diego, he asked, like, what you worship, one, is your God. And then two, if you truly believe there's no God or higher power or anything like that, especially when it comes to vocational or your money, tell God he can't take it away from you.
Oof.
And the room just got quiet.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't suggest you do that. However, if you truly in your heart believe that it's in your power, that you did this all by yourself, I think you have some really, really
Yeah.
deep digging to do. Because
Yeah.
that's scary. That's scary to me. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but that's
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is, because I mean, I think, you know, I don't know, part of my testimony that I heard, and somebody who is extremely well off, right? Because we believe that's what we're all working towards. I mean, very well off. I'm talking with the planes and multiple properties and jet setting everywhere. I mean, just doing really well and everything else. And one of his testimonies was he was signing a contract with somebody when he realized it was going the wrong direction. The contract, whatever the big contract was that he was going to get signed. And he woke up one morning, and the message in his head at that time, he remembers getting up from bed and realizing there's a God, and it wasn't him. That was a wake up call for this gentleman who, by the way, continues to thrive, you know, but with a much greater fulfillment and purpose.
that's
And
right.
so,
Absolutely.
yeah. So what, my gosh, go ahead, please.
And for whatever people, I'm starting another business called Champions Voice. And for whatever reason, for many reasons, people, they just want to focus on, obviously, working to make money or to fulfill themselves with something,
Right.
and whether that's taking care of their family or going on vacations, et cetera. But we oftentimes in society, generally speaking, we want to leave out, like, I believe, but I don't want to talk about it, or I'm a closet believer, or whatever the case may be. Which I'm a walking testimony, man. Like, however you take that and perceive that is how you do it.
Yeah.
Champions Voice is a business that I'm starting specifically for like the junior high school level athletes specifically. And why I call it Champions Voice is that every one of these individuals who are elite athlete, even from the junior high to high school level, they're essentially wanting, have a strong desire to make it either to the NBA or the NFL or, the MLB, soccer or football, etc. But one of the things I've noticed across the board, including professional athletes, as well as in the bodybuilding realm, is when I'm conducting interviews with specific individuals, oftentimes, and almost even more often than not, I'll ask them a series of questions. Their answers that they try to convey, their message isn't clear. It's not concise. There's a lot of filler words, a lot of likes, a lot of ums. They're all over the place. My business, we're trying to really hone in on sharpening, you
Mm.
know, their tongue, and really not just from an athletic perspective. They're elite athletes. We want you to also be an elite speaker, know who you are and where you come from, and, really convey a message with conviction. Hi, how are you? I'm doing well. I play in this position. I'm from here, really hone in on that, not the, what I'm saying? Like this, there's a time and a place. We can code switch, we can do all of those things. And, I understand all of that. However, this is direct representation of a corporation, something and someone and a group of individuals, typically much bigger than yourself, that you
Right.
are a direct reflection of a team that you are getting paid for. And I really found this niche to market that and go full fledged and help as many people as possible.
That is tremendous, by the way, because they are a witness, right? And so,
Correct.
and there's so much about that. So I'm sure you're not a big fan of that, but something just happened at the Ohio State University football team. I don't know if you read about it or anything else, but they're kind of being touted in I'm not going to say ridiculed, but they're definitely being made fun of because a whole bunch of them decided to have a big revival in their union, and they ended up baptizing a whole bunch of people, right? And it was just a big revival that was led by elite athletes, right?
That's right.
And but just very eloquent in their words, and I really truly also believe that being eloquent that way is that you're representing a greater power than you are, right?
Absolutely.
And so what a tremendous champion's voice, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So is there a website that's something like that right now, or
Not yet.
okay?
Not yet. It's still in the works, but it is something that I am 100% very passionate about and really would love to get the ball rolling on. So yeah.
Well, Patrick, you know what? It is 50 minutes since you and I started, believe it or not. That's just how fast the podcast goes. Um, and I'm gonna say this to you. We hardly touched the surface. I mean, honestly, all right. I would love to have you back on. Maybe I'll give you a
Be
reprieve
amazing.
of about the next 30 days or so, and maybe sometime next month, month of October, I'd love to bring in the physical well-being
Absolutely.
balancing with vocational well-being, because everyone that just listened today, yes, it's very, very deep. And in our world, um, spirituality, it is in that order. A lot of people have asked us that question. Your well-beings, what order? Why do you have it in the order that you do? Because I truly believe that spirituality is number one. Period.
That's
Your
right.
purpose, your why, like you said, followed directly by your relational side of it, which is if you're so successful, but your family's a mess and your friends and family don't even know who you are anymore, um, it's a very lonely place to be. Life was not meant to be that way. And then followed directly by physical well being, because all of that is not worth it if all of a sudden you just die from it, right? And then the fourth one is vocational. And people say, why is that number four? That's where we spend the majority of our time. It's because it's what affects that fourth one. And then finally, what do
That's
you
right.
do with the blessings you've been given on the philanthropical side of it? But I would love to explore with you not only the continual works of the spiritual side of that, but also vocational balanced with the physical well-being and how important that is, to have a more holistic success. Would you join me on that?
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. And the few things that I would like to say as well, especially prior to, is from a philanthropic, perspective, I do own a nonprofit, and I started that nonprofit and I named it 1C13 Incorporated, specifically because that acronym actually stands for First Corinthians 13.
I love that. Yeah.
And essentially, the nonprofit is what we do is we're there to fill voids wherever voids need filling. How can I
Woo.
help you? You help me. We help each other. We grow together. One. And secondly, something that I always love to leave, an audience or anyone watching or anyone who really truly gets to know me is this quote that I really truly live by as an athlete, as a former athlete, former, competitor at the Mr. Olympia, track and field athlete in school, etc., is never let success get to your head and
Yes.
never let failure get to your heart. Never
Wow.
let
Say
success
that
get to your
again.
head.
Never let what?
Never let success get to your head and never let failure get to your heart.
Oh man. The two longest points, right? Here to here, right? I mean,
Man,
that's awesome. I love that.
okay. Thank you.
And man, I gotta shut it down. And I wish I wish we'd be on here for another 2 hours, right? Drop it with that, brother, man. Uh, and I've got to tell you, what a joy it is to have you on. And this is a tough subject. This is when a lot of people tune out, by the way, and we know that
Sure.
because we see it, we see the results, right? But this is when people start to tune out, is the spiritual side of things. And I just absolutely believe that there is an absolute correlation between, well, you said it earlier, Christ, confidence, crown. You want the
That's it.
crown? Because that's what most people want. They want that crown. but
That's
they're
right.
not willing to take care of everything else that comes before that. And that crown, man, it first starts with the first part of that 3C. And so
That's
I
right.
just, man, you changed my life today. I hope
Thank
that
you.
you're able to change other people's lives. And I just want to thank you, man, for spending this time with
Oh,
us. Again, I've stolen now 54 minutes of your time. I usually try to record anywhere from 45 to 50, and I just don't even want it to end. So because it's that important to me as well. So God bless you, brother. I'm gonna any parting words that you want to share with the group and our audience before I send you back to the green room.
sure. Just briefly, I think just try it. No matter how successful you are in life, the spiritual foundation of just planting one seed can change your life. Just try it. Just be an open book, have perspective, be receptive
Yeah,
without judgment,
yeah,
and we'll go from there.
yeah.
So, Jay, thank you so much.
Whew. All right. No, thank you. And again, I'm going to chase you down. And now I've made a promise to our audience. So I
That's
really
great.
look forward to that. Enjoy the Philippines, brother. Right. And I'm going to, I always say this at the end of our show. You're off the hot seat, but thanks for blessing us with what you did share with us. And I'll say this to you from everyone else that listens. Be blessed and go be a blessing, brother. All right.
Amen. Indeed.
All
Thank you so
right.
much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. All right, guys. You know what? That mic dropped a while ago, and I'm gonna make sure that it continues to stay on that ground. Nothing else needs to be said, except for the fact that the title of this particular episode, "Bigger Than I." You can look at it however way you want to look at it. I hope you've been affected today in the right direction, by the way, because I truly believe that we are in a business that sky's the limit. Truly is sky's the limit. You will get a lot of great things out in the mortgage industry, but guys, please don't forget about the other well-beings in your life. Right? There is a balance. I don't ever expect you to be 20% on each one of those five, but you need to be aware of them enough that if you really want joyful success, right, a more holistic, joyful success, it's really being aware of all five of those. And the one that was so tough, and I was so grateful that Patrick was able to just join us with his background and everything else. A couple of things to walk away with. Number one, if you made an excuse in your head, you're too busy to get the mortgage business done, I want you to think about what Patrick just shared with you and how many businesses he's running while still working full time and traveling all over the world, right? So there's hardly an excuse. And I truly believe he has the power to do that because he has a far bigger purpose than that. It is bigger than I. And so, with that said, let me say it back to you guys. Hope you guys have been affected today, effective correctly and in the right direction. And I want to let you guys know, love you and be blessed and go be a blessing. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you guys on our next episode. Bye-bye.
And that wraps another episode of Challenging Your Status Quo. We hope you found inspiration and practical wisdom to carry into your daily lives. If JA has inspired you, join our community by subscribing to the podcast. Stay connected with us at latreacoaching.com and through our social media channels where the conversation and growth continue. On behalf of JA and his whole team, we thank you for listening and invite you to keep challenging the status quo in your own life. Until next time, remember, pursue excellence, live purposefully, and embrace holistic success. We'll catch you next episode.